Again, one and all, to today's webinar. At this point in time, even if we didn't have any webinar experience before, we've had 2 years of online events, so I will make the preliminary remarks as brief as possible. I would like to answer a couple of practical questions before you need to ask them. Yes, both our speakers today have slides and we'll share them with you afterwards. There will also be a recording made of this webinar, which you can look at your leisure. Do you have questions, remarks during the webinar? Don't hesitate to ask them in the chat or Q&A. If they are urgent or topical, something which the speakers can clarify on, they will either pick them up themselves or I as a moderator will do so, but don't hesitate to share any remarks or views you might have, because they are probably quite useful for the Q&A, which we will do in the end. So without further ado, today's webinar is hosted by Square Circle, a multidisciplinary consulting company based in Brussels. They offer solutions to many challenges organizations face in the broad area of people working together, from business transitions to social relations, communication and risk management, and also in the development of team dynamics. Today they are represented by Ms. Anne de Waal, an HR responsible of long-standing in Belgium and in multinational organizations. She will present her views on team collaboration based on the results roadmap tool, which she has ample experience with. We are also joined today by Mr. Juan Gonzalez Ramon, or JJ, a leadership and systemic coach who has ample experience in a multinational environment and is at this moment active applying the principles of the results roadmap experience in many professional projects. So without further ado, I will gladly give the word to Anne, who will introduce herself a bit more.
Okay, thank you, Bert, for this introduction. Hello, everyone. Very welcome to this webinar. Also, JJ, very welcome. You were so kind to join us as a guest speaker, as you will be sharing your experiences in working with the results roadmap with all of us who have joined for the webinar. So thank you very much for that, and we're looking forward to hear from you. So as Bert said, my name is Anne de Waal. I'm partner at Square Circle, and with Square Circle, I am helping organizations in change and transformation. I work a lot with leadership development and coaching, with team performance and employee engagement. And Bert has already introduced Square Circle, so I will not take too much of the time to do so, but just this only one slide for those of you who don't know us yet. So Square Circle is a team of people who have a long experience in communications and in HR. And we use this experience to help our customers in implementing all kinds of projects. We believe that implementing projects, one of the most important factors is people, and aligning people to really pull their efforts together and help the company in achieving their results is what we guide companies with. We give advice, we have tools, we give trainings, things like that that can help companies in achieving their goals. But also strengthening individuals and teams, because the people factor is, according to us, one of the most important drivers to get really the right business results. We offer trainings to individuals, for instance, in leadership and communication to strengthen their skills, but we also coach teams. We look into the performance of the teams, the clarity of the way they work. They work within the team, but they also work across the teams with others in the company. And as such, we try to strengthen their collaboration, their cooperation, and strengthen the output of their performance. And then last but not least, Square Circle has also a strong expertise in helping companies through crises. Here you can think about social crises, product issues, media articles about the company. And here, of course, it is extremely important that as a company, you come on top of this crisis and you take actually the communication flow in your own hands so you can create the appropriate impact on your stakeholders, both internally and externally, and on the media. So in short, Square Circle is working in the area of people, because we believe that it's extremely important to engage leadership and employees to transform, develop, and grow together with the company. Why this webinar? Let me start by sharing a personal story here. About 7 years ago, it was back in 2015, I was participating as part of a talent program in the company that I worked with in a question about my future career. So all the participants in this talent program were asked to think about how will your future career evolve? What are your ambitions? How do you want your life to look like in a couple of years from now? And we each got a coach to help us answering this question. In my case, I got a coach that was using this specific methodology, which was called the result system. And I wasn't familiar with this methodology back then. But of course, with the help of this coach, I learned what it was about. And we built in 2 sessions, 2 coaching sessions, online, by the way, because he was based in Boston and I was based in Belgium and Sweden at that time. We didn't travel for the coaching. We did it fully online. We built our roadmap, or my roadmap, answering the question, where do I want to be in a couple of years from now? How do I see my career, and how will I develop myself to achieve my goals? Now, this is 7 years ago, and when I look back at this roadmap, I can tell you that I would say about 90% of the things that I have been thinking of back then have now been turned into reality. So it was not words, it was also action. And this is really thanks to the roadmap system that I was using back then. So this is a very, very powerful tool. And because I think it is so powerful, I decided a couple of months ago to dig into this a bit more and to learn more about the tool. So I did a certification training, and I am now licensed to work with it and have started to use this with individual coaches, but also with teams in organizations that we support to build their own roadmap. And that is why I decided today to have this webinar, because I believe that all of you are actually in one or another way working towards results. Results are important to us. It can be big things, it can be small things. It can be things on the short run, it can be more on the long run, but in one or another way, we are all working towards results, and achievements are important to us. They are actually a quite important part of our lives. And when we achieve things successfully, we really feel good about it. So maybe you can take just a moment for yourself to think about something that you wish to achieve in the coming 6 months. What is it that is on your to-do list, and what do you want to achieve successfully so you can feel good about it? You, or maybe it's an achievement that you need to get with your team. If you have an example in mind, you can make a mental note of it. It might help you going further through this webinar. I'll show you some examples. This is just a list of examples of desired results that someone might want to achieve and where you could use the results roadmap to work with. On an individual level, it could be things like, I want to take a next step in my career, or I need to communicate better. I have to spend more time on strategic issues. I'm always too operationally occupied and I need to make a plan to change that. Could be that I want to actively contribute to the diversity and inclusion culture in my company, but I do not really know how to do that. So I could build a roadmap on that. Or it could be something personal, like I'd love to have more energy. On teams and organization levels, it can be things like achieving business growth, digitalizing sales channels, cooperating in a better way, or you could think about a situation where we are merging 2 teams and they need to think together how they will start working together to achieve the best results as a new team. So this is only a list with examples. And the thing is that for many of these things, to achieve them, you need to change something. That's not always the case, but for quite often when you want to reach a new result, it means changing some things. And change, unfortunately, is hard. And you might be familiar with this curve or a variation of this curve. The curve clearly shows ups and downs on your path to reach a new end state. Let me just quickly explain this with as an example, I'd love to have more energy. If that would be my end goal, my desired new state, I can think about how will I reach this level of having more energy. And let's say that I have decided that I will exercise 3 times a week from now on. And moreover, I will start running 3 times a week. Now, I'm not good at running at all, but since I decided this, and I've seen many of other examples of people who are running and get more energy out of it, I decide to do this, and I'm very motivated to do that. So the first morning, the alarm goes off 6 o'clock in the morning because I decided to run before office hours. And what happens? I'm very motivated. I jump out of bed, put on my running gear, and I go for my practice. I take a shower afterwards, drive to work, and I feel really proud about myself, and I'm really energized about what I did. Next morning, same thing. The alarm clock goes off. I'm very optimistic, jump out of bed and go running. But the third morning, I feel when the alarm clock goes off, I feel a bit stiff in the muscles. My body is a bit sore. It's raining, it's windy outside, and I don't think the conditions are really good to do my running exercise. So this little voice starts telling in my head that it's okay to stay in bed. You can still do that tonight, and the week is still long. You said 3 times a week. Maybe you can do it the day after today. So the little voice actually keeps me in bed. So what you can see is that I'm slowly starting to slide down from this curve of optimism, and I'm starting to slide down a little bit. And here is the point where I really need to get myself together again and make sure that I crawl up on the curve. So I need to have some tactics in place that help me actually climbing out of that curve. Tactics could be, I ask a friend to run together with me because that will make it much easier. Or another tactic could be that I start running in the evenings instead of in the mornings because that will make it easier for me. All kind of things to climb up on this curve. I have some new ideas and I work again. You get the grip, you get the idea of what I'm wanting to tell you here. The curve will move up and down, but important is to each time when it goes down a little bit to lift yourself up and to continue actually on your path of change. Now, let me quickly, and Bert will assist in launching a poll. Let me quickly check with you, double check with you whether you recognize this curve. Have you been in a situation where you were also going through these ups and downs whilst you were working towards achieving a certain goal? Let me know your thoughts. Bert, if you can launch the poll.
Just a small moment, because...
Okay, I saw it, yeah.
Because we launch.
Okay, so there you have the poll. And you simply answer whether you've seen this before, whether you've been there before, yes or no. And I don't see the answers coming in, Bert, but I guess you can, and you can show them the results, as this was a very easy question. Yeah, okay, it's very clear. You can see it as well. All of you actually answered, yes, we've been there before. So if you have been there before, I guess your teams have been there before as well. And I guess the whole organization has been there before, isn't it? So important to manage this curve of change. Now I need to move my slides. Yep, okay. And if it is so difficult actually to move through this curve of change and to reach the result that you want to achieve, then the key question is, what is a smart way to get there? Before I answer that question, I Googled a bit. And I Googled on the internet on the words success and on the words results, and I found some quotes. And I also want to test those quotes with you, again, in a poll. So Bert, if you can open the poll, what do you think about this first quote? The key to success is to focus on goals, not on obstacles. Do you agree to that, or you might disagree to that? Just put your vote in, yes or no, and then we can take a look at the results.
I see the results still coming in.
Okay, here we have some people who disagree. but most still agree with this. But some people feel only focusing on the goals and not on the obstacles might not be the right tactics. Okay, I will not further comment on it. Just keep this in mind and we will see how we progress further down in this webinar. I show you a second quote. The road to success is dotted with many tempting parking spaces. What do you think about this one? The road to success is paved with many tempting parking spaces. So Bert, you can show us the answers. Okay, 93% feels that this is true. There are many tempting parking spaces. And remember that because we will see that further down as well. Thank you. Okay, one more. This is a bit a different one. If at first you don't succeed, try and try again. Then quit. No use being a damn fool about it. What do you think about this one? From Mr. Fields, a famous American actor. Very curious to see your results here. Bert, can you show the results? Aha, wow, it's almost a 50-50. So that's an interesting one. Some people say, yes, just quit after you've tried and tried again. And others say, no, you need to continue. Interesting. Thanks for sharing your answers. Okay, and then we have a last one, a very famous one. And this is Mr. Einstein, who said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I guess you all know this quote. So how do you feel about this quote? Would you say that is correct or you might disagree? Let us know your thoughts. And Bert will show us the results. Okay. The big majority of you agree with Mr. Einstein. He was a clever man, so I guess we follow his wisdom and his knowledge. Thank you for answering these questions. Now let's come back to the key question here. If it is so difficult to achieve a certain result that requires a change, what is the smartest way to get there? And my answer to the question is, the smartest way to get there is to, first of all, begin with the end in mind. Secondly, identify what is going to help you and what will be the obstacles on your road. And thirdly, develop your critical path to success. Because this critical path to success is actually what is going to help you to move through this curve successfully and to reach your new end state. But how do you identify this critical path of success? Well, this is exactly where the result system comes in. The result system is a methodology that will help you really to identify how you best move through this curve of ups and downs as a team, as an individual, as an organization. And it is based on neuroscience. Without going too deep into this, just one slide. Our system, our internal system doesn't like change. Our brains perceive change as a threat and they try to stay away from it as much as possible. And therefore, our brains have come up with 3 lines of defense. First of all, it tries to stay invisible. There's a lot of things going on in the background, the little voices inside in my head that tell me it's okay not to run today, but it tries to stay invisible. It also, our system tries to make it uncomfortable to change. It wants us to stay where we are because that is nice and safe. So we are tempted to give up. Think about the quote on the many parking spaces along the road. And our system tries to tell us stories. So here it's important to find actually a defense system against these 3 lines of defense. And that is what the results roadmap does. It starts with the end in mind. So we start at the right-hand side of this model here to clearly define what is the result that we want to achieve. Because you have that clearly formulated, you also can look at the road to get there. If you don't know what you want to, where you want to end up with, you don't know what road to take. Of course, we need to take some actions because only thinking about the result will not help you. Nothing happens when you only think about something. You really have to take actions, and actions are a consequence of options, choices, and of milestones that you define. And this is exactly what we do when we use the result roadmap. We look into all of that. But that is the visible part. And as we said, there's also a lot of things that are invisible, but that are having an important impact on the way we are actually trying to achieve our results. And also this is then part of the work we do when we use the result roadmap with you and your teams. It looks like this at the end. This is an empty result roadmap. One by one, we build up the roadmap. And here you can see an outcome of a session that was done with a team. It's a big team in this case. We needed the whole wall. And this team was working towards the result, which you can see here at the right-hand side. In this case, it was creating greater impact and expanding our opportunities. It can also be done in a digital format, but because COVID learned us that it's not always possible to get the teams physically together. So online session to work and build a roadmap with teams or as an individual is perfectly possible, as you can see here. And as I said, results will not just come, you need to take some actions. So within this results roadmap methodology, you will have lots of inputs to build your own calendar, action calendar, and make this a lively document for yourself or for your team to start your journey in your way to achieve results. So what can we use it for? When we look at teams and organizations, there is many different possibilities. I was talking earlier about some teams that we are currently actually guiding by pulling together roadmaps. And these teams are doing that because they have defined, together with Square Circle, by the way, a mission and vision for the company. And now that they have this vision and they know where they want to be in a couple of years from now, they are building their roadmaps to get there. So a very interesting application of the results roadmap. But on this list here, you can see many different situations in which this could be used. And the list is an open-ended list because there are really many different cases where the results roadmap could be used. And I hope that JJ will say a few things about that as well. Here you have a slide with some pictures just to give you an impression on how it would work when you have a live session with a team. You can see it's highly interactive, it's highly dynamic. People are bringing their inputs to the big board and pick their sticky notes and pull them on the board. And at the end of the session, after good discussions about this, they really see their critical path to reach their results, their desired results. For individuals or groups, it can be used in situations where you want to work with personal development, a performance improvement plan, maybe career planning. Think about the example that I shared as a personal story in the beginning. It can be a part of talent programs as well. And the difference between individuals and group setup is that in case of an individual setting, it is really a one-to-one coaching. In case of groups, we bring individuals together, for instance, as part of a talent program, and they each answer their own question and build their own roadmap, but we guide them through it as a group. So in practice, and this is then my last slide before I hand over to JJ, in practice, you can use the results roadmap just as a one-off, a standalone session. If you are busy working towards a certain result and you want to get some help and you want to know how you will successfully get there, you can do that as a one-off, but it can also be part of a program. And you can see here the different settings, both live and online is possible. And then you have the different possibilities from individual all the way to an extended group session. And what you see here is that it takes you 2.5 hours up to 5 hours to build your roadmap. And I can really say it is a small investment for the power that you get out of it at the end. So JJ, I will hand over the word to you because we are very curious to hear how you have been using the results roadmap in your organization.
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me to share. You hear me well, right? So
yes.
Thank you for inviting me to share my experience as I have been using the result roadmap methodology in my organization for a number of years. and I am happy to share with you. So let me start sharing my screen over here. Here, okay. And hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. I understand this is a community in Belgium, the Netherlands, and probably people from other countries, but basically is the Dutch-speaking community, right?
That's correct.
That's perfect. Thank you for having me in English because my Dutch is so limited. And I'd like to share with you my experience in applying the result roadmap methodology in some of the cases. I'm an internal executive and team coach at Roche, and I have been involved in several change management initiatives or reorgs that use as frameworks the change management and other coaching practices precisely to navigate through the change. So, and this is going to be precisely the context in which I will share with you my experience in using the result roadmap. So now I need to make sure, yes. So many of you, if not all, are familiar with the famous ADKAR model. And the ADKAR model is created by PROSI or PROSI organization, and this is a definition that they use for change management. It is the process, tools, and techniques to manage the people side of the change to achieve the required results. And I just like to draw your attention specifically to these two elements. Number one is the people side of the change, which is what Anne was referring to previously, and for the sake, not only for the sake of the people themselves, which is already important, but also to produce results. It has the two components here. So, and you are familiar with the ADKAR model, right? I don't need to explain what ADKAR is, but it's a model by which you track the change and you go through the phases, etc. So in particular, the desire stage is the turning point for change to happen individually and collectively. And this is the point, or this is the stage in the change process where I have been using very powerfully the result roadmap. So other people, and we are also familiar with the work of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in terms of the change curve. We all go through this change curve in one way or another in our daily situations or organizational situations. We can combine the two of them, or we can, let's say, bring them together to understand that, or to see that the turning point at that deeper point of the emotional acceptance is more or less the same as the desire phase that I was referring to in ADKAR. And this is precisely where I was. To the extent, let's put it this way, to the extent that the desire phase of ADKAR, or to the extent that the emotional acceptance point in the curve is successfully managed, is successfully supported, then the change will be successful or not, right? And this is precisely what I took into account, because, by the way, everybody is different. Everybody faces the change differently. Everybody is unique. And everybody has these questions. What is in for me when it comes to a change, when it comes to a organizational change, when it comes to decisions? Anne was referring that she got in contact with the methodology when they were asked, what about my future career, right? How do I envision myself in the next couple of years? So what is in for me? And the answer depends on everybody's personalities and ways of being. So, and this is another element that I want to bring as a recipe for this, as element for this recipe. Okay, so this is what I'm gonna focus: desire, emotional acceptance, turning point in the change curve, and coping with my spirit of coach. So we have a decision here, right? I was belonging to a leadership team a couple of years ago where we were precisely planning the organizational change. And unfortunately, at that particular organization, as a result of the reorg, 15% of the positions were going to be eliminated, right? 15% of the positions. And this is tough. And we all, and you are an HR community, you are an change management community, and you know that every reorg, when it comes to elimination of positions, is hard. Now, the leaders of the organization have the great intention to support people through the change, to help people, right? And that's good. That's a good intention. However, here, depending on how we set our mindset, let's say, as we face those changes, we will get the results accordingly. What I mean is the following. So leaders with a good intention offer trainings, coaching, mentoring, education, exposure, etc., or many things to help people through the change. So, however, you see, if we see people as victims of the change or people impacted by the change, whatever you offer, being training, coaching, mentoring, whatever, will only magnify and will only confirm the condition of victims or impacted people. However, if we see the people in front of us, the people of my team, the people of organization as professional, resourceful, creative, whole, smart, etc., whatever we do, being training, coaching, education, etc., will confirm and amplify that resourcefulness, creativity, wholeness of the people. And that was my selling point, if you will. That was my motivation precisely to bring the result roadmap. Because as Anne mentioned, the result roadmap gives you at a personal level, of course at collective level, but let me focus on the personal level. It brings you back the accountability to you, to every single person, right? And by offering these result roadmap sessions and options to every single individual in the organization, what we are bringing them is a opportunity to realize, okay, what is my stake? What is in for me in terms of this change? What is my desire to participate or not in the change, right? So my goal of bringing this, the result roadmap at this stage of the change was to minimize the impact of that emotional part of the curve, like to softening it a little bit, and to accelerate the next phases, right? The adapting, testing, integrate. I was focusing on this. Okay, so I came up with this proposal to my leadership team. I was part of the leadership team. And in addition of being part of one part of that organization, I was also leading the change management and coaching part of the change. So this is what and then I was remembering one of these, you will resonate with me. Once you are in this organizational, so you have workshops, right? Offsite workshop in the Black Forest or in the sea, etc. Planning. So here I am at the beginning of the year, some years ago, and that was my goal, because also people want to see results, right? What are the results are we gonna achieve with this proposal, JJ? And this is what I proposed. Okay. So we are going to have no barrier points of ADKAR pulse check in the desired component as follows. We will have 3 checkpoints throughout the year. In May, 75% of no barrier points, 85% of no barrier points. November, 95 to 100%. And those of you, and we have like 50 people or more in the call today, those of you who know the ADKAR might be thinking that I am crazy. Offering those results, I might be crazy. And that was precisely the question that I was given by my peers, my colleagues. Are you crazy, JJ? And not only did they ask me that, they put a phrase like this: Oh yes, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, you're crazy, or you are dreaming, or you are, what are you drinking or so? So I don't know. I was believing on the fact that we could influence that desire at those with this magnitude with using some tools, and one of the tools was precisely the result roadmap. Well, so off we went. It was accepted with some caveats, but it was accepted. Off we went to offer those result roadmap to the organization, and more or less 80% of the people got through it. And we created nice workshops and nice, you can see here some of the pictures at an individual level and group level, etc. It was a nice, delivery of the topics. So now coming back to results, this we took a poll or a statistics before the individual result roadmap, taking into account the change curve, and this is a sample of a group that went through it. So where are you now before the result roadmap? Where are you in terms of the change? And you can see here, the most of them were in that emotional state, right? So wondering, some of them were still angry and bargaining, etc. So few of them were already in the adapting and testing phase. Right after the workshop, we see how people are moving to adapting already right after it, because they saw what it means for me, and they took accountability of this. And we took the same sample 1 month later, as they are starting to implement the actions that Anne was referring to, right? So you can see here how we offered a space and a tool for that acceleration to happen. So yeah, so this is what one way to see it. Another way to see it is that in the check-in, we were asking 3 questions. Question number 1, I know how to prioritize my goals and actions to create results. I know how to change my limiting thoughts and mindset to support me achieving my goals. And I know how to create a roadmap to achieve my desired results. Check in before the sessions and check out after the sessions. And you can see here, moving from neutral and agree to agree and strongly agree, from neutral and agree to agree and strongly agree. And this is the one I like the most, the number 3, from disagree and neutral to basically strongly agree. So again, that intention of bringing the accountability back to the people was manifested in here. Other written feedback, and this is a very small sample of what people say after going through it. You can read. And finally, so you might remember this one, just to finalize. So probably some people told me that I was a little bit naive, or I was a little bit, not knowing what was going to happen. But this is what we got basically. So remember, this was the goal. The goal was to have no barrier points in ADCAR pulse check at the desired component, 75%, 85%, and 95 to 100% in those 3 checkpoints. Well, so this was the actual results, actually. It wasn't 75, it was 90%. And it was, wow, even myself, I was very surprised. It wasn't 85, it was less than 85, it was 82. Explanation of that is that at the beginning of August, that was when people were informed who of them were actually impacted. So their positions were. So you could see a small decrease there. And November checkpoint, 100% of these ADCAR results. And again, so this is my experience in one application out of several of using the result roadmap at individual and groups and team levels in my organization. And with this, I think I am arriving to the end of my couple of slides and getting back to Anne and others for questions if you have. Anne?
Thank you, JJ. I'll take over from here and share my screen again. You can see my screen? No. Just a second. All right. So thanks a lot, JJ, for sharing your experience. We are coming at the end of the presentation, so there's also room for Q&A towards the end of this webinar. So if you have any questions for JJ, you can already start putting them in the chat, or if you have questions for me, please do so. We hope to get some questions because it's always interesting, of course, to hear what is still unclear for you, or just maybe put some reactions in the chat as well. As you are doing that, I also want to share that we will be sending you, as Bert already said in the beginning of the webinar, we will be sending you some links about this webinar and more information about the results roadmap to all of you who have now participated in the webinar. And of course, you can also contact us. You can go to our website where you can find a contact form, or you can just use the email address. And also, especially for those of you who have been joining the webinar, we do realize that using this tool is an investment. It's an investment both in time and money. And the first time is maybe a bit of a question mark, like how well will it serve our goals? I hope that JJ and I convinced you that there's a lot of power in this tool. And we are very convinced that it will work also for you in your organization. But as a tryout, if you contact us to set up a results roadmap, we will give you a special price until the end of March. So if you are keen to work with it, please make sure that you contact us before the end of March, and we will offer you a special price. So let's see what is in the chat already. I see a question. Do you have experience with this tool with an executive committee, and what was their feedback? JJ, if you are okay with this, I'll let you answer it because you have been working with this tool a lot, and I know also on executive level. So
yeah, thank you. And the particular individual result roadmap, as an executive committee, so the group, I haven't, but I have the experience of working individually with those executives. So individually, yes, we have been using it. And there is another tool in the same family, which is called Results Accelerator. And probably that's the one that Anne also experienced a couple of years ago. That Results Accelerator goes even deeper into the exploration of what is in for me as an executive, what is in for me as a leader of an organization, what are the patterns that my true leadership traits, etc. So the answer is no. I haven't used individual result roadmap in a setup of the executive committee, but I have been using it for the individual coaching to those executives with those results. Yeah.
Okay, so Audrey, I don't know if that answered your question. If you have a follow-up question, please put it in the chat, and then we come back on this. In the meantime, I take a second question. Are you going to explain how the roadmap works concretely? Well, when we do a session, the introduction part of the session is indeed how the roadmap works, because it's important for people to understand the mechanisms. And this is also where we come back a little bit on these principles of neuroscience. We go through the model one by one with them to fully explain how it will work, so they know what they can expect that will happen in the session, and then we start working accordingly. I haven't done this here to the full extent. I only touched a few things to give you just enough information to get the bigger picture. But of course, if you want to know more concretely how it works, feel free to give me a call or contact us on the website, and we'll get back in touch with you to give some more information. I hope, Stephanie, that this answered your question. If not, let me know. All right, thank you. Any other questions? As you are thinking about other questions, okay, I see one coming on, Candice. Do you also offer trainings on it? If you mean, Candice, trainings to get yourself starting to work with the roadmap, then it is the answer is no. We don't offer those trainings. I did the training myself with the coach in Boston that is actually the one owning the tool and giving certification trainings. Do we understand correctly that we need a 5-hour session to build our roadmap? It depends, Audrey. For an individual, it's 2.5 hours. The team extended version is 5 hours, but the standard version for teams is 4 hours. What is the difference? I will explain that. Normally, a standard version will be okay, and then you need the 4 hours. With a team of, let's say, 10 persons, it can be more, it can be less. But sometimes teams don't know each other well. Let's think about the situation where we have been merging 2 teams, for instance, and to start off well, they build their roadmap. In that case, it is sometimes needed to build the roadmap a bit slower and to build in some additional steps actually before you start building the team's roadmap. And therefore we need more time, and therefore this extra hour counts. But this is something that we will look into if you have a concrete situation at hand, and we look into what is the best way to approach this. JJ, maybe you can comment on this one as well, because I know that you have also worked both with the extended versions and the standard version, the full version and the standard version, right?
Yes, absolutely. It can vary from 1 hour for individual coaching all the way through to 4 hours, or even I have been doing it in a offsite meeting. I was invited to Europa Park in Germany, 1 full day of working together with a team. Yeah, depends. I mean, as a coach, you use what is
available
and meaningful for the team and that. I just wanted to make a comment here, which probably we didn't speak about it in detail, but I am just speaking from Stephanie's comment. So normally when we have nice coaching tools, you come up with a lot of thoughts, ideas, options, right? Possibilities. And this is part of the coaching element, right? Generation of ideas. Now, there is a turning point in the roadmap where you come up with your critical path for success. Because yes, I can have 20 ideas on how to overcome or how to get more energy in your example, or how to overcome but we want to focus. Focus is power. And this is one of the neuroscience principles that is in the center of this tool. Focus is power. So the tool itself, or the methodology, helps you to determine out of those 20 or 30 ideas, what is your critical path for success. And this is a turning point in my experience, right? That I was referring previously, that one of my goals was to bring the accountability back to people. So when people understand not only the variety of ideas, but how to focus, the critical path for success, chances are that I will be more motivated to do the top 3 or 5 things that I have to do, as opposed to the 25 things that I came up as an ideation. Just wanted to mention that this critical path for success is a key element of the methodology.
Yeah, thank you so much, JJ, for explaining that a little more. In the meantime, I see a new question. The roadmap starts from a defined goal. How much time do you spend in a session on ensuring the goal is clear, or is this expected to be clear upfront? It's a really good question. I think it's a question coming from someone with coaching experience, because indeed in individual coaching, you spend a lot of time first to really have a clear goal formulated. And this is also what we start with when we do a roadmap session. And there is some question techniques that helps the individual or the team to really define end goal. So to explore, the first thing I thought about that would be my goal, is that really what I'm after? So we will do a couple of explorations on this one to make sure that the end goal is really the one that is motivating for them, that will be driving them forward, that will pay off for them in the future, and all of that. It doesn't take too much time, but it is the starting point. As I also explained, we begin with the end in mind. We begin really with formulating the result, the desired end state, together with the individual. When it comes to teams, it might be a bit different, because there it depends on the goal of the team that needs to be achieved in the organization. And then there is several options. We could have, together with the team leader, for instance, an intake conversation to see what is it that you want to get out of this with your team. And we try then to formulate the goal together. And then when we have the session with the team, we spend some time as well on really making sure that everybody buys into that goal. And maybe when they don't, we check with them what is needed to fully contribute today in this session to work towards this goal. How will it work? Okay, I see that this answer is sufficient for you. Thank you. Let me check the time. I think we have a couple of more minutes. Any other questions that pop up? Maybe I can ask a question to you, JJ, because you have been using the tools in many different applications, and you explained to us the situation where there was a downsizing and the results of that one. But could you, because you talked also about diversity and inclusion, for instance, and I know that for some of the people being online right now, this is a very important topic. So could you maybe share a bit of your ideas on this one?
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, the roadmap itself works in all variety of applications. One of the parallel or additional tools is called the Core Needs Navigator, right? And what it means is the following: everybody of us are unique, right? And diversity and inclusion is successful to the extent not only that we accept the diversity in all kinds of forms, cultural, age, abilities, etc. But it's also about the inclusion. How do we include those different point of view? How do we leverage? How do we integrate that? So with the Core Needs Navigator, which is part of the results systems, so you reconnect with your uniqueness, right? With everything that makes you thrive, makes you feel engaged, excited, motivated, right? And when you do it in a group setup, you recognize if I understand what are your core needs, therefore what makes you unique, what makes you happy, engaged, fulfilled, and you recognize what makes me fulfilled, recognize my uniqueness. So when we do it in a group and when we do it in a team, chances are that we are going to be leveraging each other uniqueness more. So that's why I call it this is the part of the inclusion, not only inclusion or inclusivity, it's also leverage those differences. So, and again, so this one, probably building, if I may, let me build a little bit on one additional point, also, probably connecting these two dots. And I am gonna mention this with the authorization of the two people that I am gonna speak. Of course, I will not reveal their names, but there was two of the people that were impacted by that reorg. They came back to me after that and they said, remember accountability back, right? So one of them, he said, JJ, for many years, I was considering in becoming a priest, a pastor in my church, right? So in his church. And I never dared to do so, right? So thanks to the individual result roadmap, it helped me to understand the why I am doing what I do, and what alternatives, what options, etc., etc. So thanks to that, so to the result roadmap, he clarified his reasons to become a priest, and he did. 1 year later, he came back, he visited us, and he said, well, you know, I have a sense of satisfaction that I couldn't have without having this experience, right? I'm not saying that the result roadmap was the only driver for that decision, but it brought up clarity about his result roadmap and his critical path for success, as I was referring to. The other case is a person who comes from Australia, and she was living in Switzerland for many years, but it was the time for her to go back to Australia. But she didn't have the courage to do so, or the elements, etc. Again, thanks to the clarification steps that she went through in the result roadmap, she took the final decision. She wasn't impacted at the beginning, but she chose to be, being asked to be impacted, so that she could move to Australia to take decisions that she didn't have, she couldn't make before. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to offer these two additional examples because they were very nice to see as a consequence of using the tool.
Thank you, JJ. I see there's no more questions that have come in, and we are like 2 minutes before 12, so time to wrap up and close. From my side, I just want to maybe close by saying that I hope that you have experienced how powerful that we believe that this tool is, and what a difference it can make to really help people, teams, organizations to move through this curve successfully. It's, according to me, a very little investment, and you get a great return. And there's plenty of different situations in which this tool can be really powerful and helpful. So thank you all for joining us in the webinar. We hope you got a good time, and you feel that this hour was well spent as well.